Hello, everybody. You couldn't hear me. I know you couldn't hear me. That was done on purpose, I promise. That, and I forgot to put my mic in the right place. Let me just move it over a little bit. Why am I so tall? Down, Jim. It's as down as it goes. Apparently my camera is looking down today. Not entirely sure why. Anyway, hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to the stream. It's nice to see you all here. Very nice to see you all here. And I'm so glad that it was muted, Jimmy James, because then you would have heard me singing, which is a disaster all on its own, let me be honest with you. Anyway, everybody is here that I see. Everyone, I hope you are all doing a wonderful, wonderful Sunday of some kind of rest or relaxation. Today I tried to avoid work as much as I could. Still didn't really work out so well, but then again, it was the interesting and fun stuff. Guten Tag, Frederik Schmidt, how are you? Wie geht's, mein Herr? Mein Herr? Yes, I think that's how one says it. Anyway, hello everybody, and I hope you all are doing well. Nick the Knife, hello from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Wow. Very, very cool spot, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Lots of dinosaurs that I quite like up there. The Edmontosaurus, for example. Quite nice duck-billed dinosaur, anyway. And the Albertosaurus, too. I mean, look, naming becomes tricky with dinosaurs, but anyway. There we are. Right, so we've got a full show today. Our Dungeon Discovery cards are back for us to use. So if you ask a question tonight, you will get yourself a draw from 1, 2, or 3. So what I'm going to do tonight, because I think it's far more interesting if it's your own choice rather than my random choice. So when you ask a question, at the end, write the number 1, 2, or 3. So it's 1, 2, or 3. So if you're sharp, you'll figure out which deck contains what. And then halfway through, I'm going to swap the decks around anyway. But you drop in the 1, 2, or 3 anyway. Right. So you are asking your questions this evening. If you are asking a question, and I would encourage you to ask a question, as I used to say to my students so many years ago, remember there is no such thing as a stupid question, only a stupid person. So let's make sure that if you do have a question, go ahead and ask it. We'll give an answer one way or another. Do what Watcher2417 has done here. Write the word question in caps so that we can see it, or if you're Nick the Knife from Edmonton, you write a gigantic paragraph. We'll get there. Nick will definitely get there. So, right, I think World Anvil is busy wrapping up, if not already wrapping up. They're doing their update of what's going on in their world. But anyway, right, let's jump straight into some questions. I've got some interesting Kickstarter for you tonight to talk about as well. I could show you the email chain that went backwards and forwards, and I might. But anyway, let's see what happens. Right. So first question off the bat, Watcher2417 says, "Is your first book also suitable for writing stories? And can you give me some tips for writing a story?" Okay. Well, it's an interesting one, and I have never written a novel. I have written dozens of short stories. I have written, obviously, the books, which are technical manuals, so they're not stories. I have written a few feature-length screenplays, which are 90 minutes, which means they're about 120 pages long. So I'm giving you context. However, I have spoken with Seth Skorkowski, who is a novelist. He's written several very, very popular books, which apparently are very, very good. And I spoke to him about how his writing compared to being a GM and the like. And he said that writing books these days, people are looking much more for more of a cinematic Hollywood script approach to novel writing rather than a more traditional approach, which would differ from what we present. So considering the fact that the book, Complete Guide to Epic Campaigns, is based entirely on my script writing notes, it actually is almost a script writing book rather than a role-playing book. it will definitely help you in terms of creating a narrative structure which is very strong. It won't help you in terms of how do you develop character, thought, and theme, and how do you structure your writing so that we know that we're in the character's head rather than another character's head, and all those kinds of things that you have to think about when you are writing a book. And of course, bear in mind the biggest difference between a book, a television show, and role-playing is who has control of choice. And that's the critical thing. In film, who has control of choice? Obviously, it's the director, not the actors or the characters that the actors are playing. In role-playing, it's the players who have the control of choice. And in a novel, you as the author have that control. So it's about realizing what that control does and means for you as well. So yes, you can. And I'm actually, I'm going to use it as a very good example of something that's in the works. Now, I'm going to share this with you folks because I trust all 29 of you. I have been going very, very slowly through every single one of the templates that are in that book. And I've realized there are quite a lot of templates in there. Anyway, I've been going through all of those templates and I have been converting them into a form fillable version for PDF with the help of one of the fans, and I will call him Jerry because his name is Jerry. Anyway, Jerry has been helping me in terms of testing the forms and that sort of thing, and they are now ready. So I have a sample just lined up because I was going to talk about these at some point anyway in tonight's stream, but I think this kind of flows quite nicely into it. So I've got it. Oops, I apologize. I have it here for us. So this is the one form. This is the master plot form. So you can now type in, let's say, Jerry, and I know it's very small, but it's because you can type in lots of text and it shrinks down and it brings it back, and you can't see me, so my hand gestures are a waste of time, but it shrinks down the text and it brings it back, and you can fill in everything. So they all are form fillable, and you can fill the whole thing in, and there aren't any prompts in it. If you want prompts and things, go to World Anvil. That's why they're there. This is literally just because so many people have said, I've got the forms, where do we get them from, and how can we fill them in an easy way? So originally I thought you'd do it by hand, but that's because I'm a very, very old person who really should just be put out of my misery. Forms is where it's at, yo. So dog, I made these fillable form things, my homie, or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I've made these fillable forms. Now, making those fillable forms doesn't mean jack diddly, because it's not going to help in terms of I've made them, but you can't have them. No, I have actually made them available. Now, what's important is that I have said to the Web Goblin, listen, we've got to be more, we've got to get, these things need to be more accessible, so that we can share them around and that sort of thing. So he has been working on a system that gets me off of his back, whilst sort of surviving the rigors of his little world. He didn't have water for 2 weeks during this COVID thing, and of course South Africa's in quite heavy lockdown. And anyway, so he has now made a little page for me on our actual website. And I hope that I'm not sharing the actual link with you because it's not the correct link. But soon, as in I really, really wanted him to finish his weekend, but he's busy. Soon you'll be able to go to our website and there will be a giant button called a bag of holding, or the GM's bag of holding, or something along those lines anyway. And in it you will be able to find, oh thank goodness I masked out the because we've got he has some wizardry where he can show me what the page will look like before it's released to the public. So you will be able to go here. He called it Monsters and Video Goodies, which really shows you why he's not in charge of words. No, I absolutely adore him. And so what it is a folder. So you'll see here that these are the folders. Now you can go into the folder and you'll see there are all the forms. Look at that, all of the forms. So all of these forms, one of these is actually for this last week's video, the 5 steps to story. I see the World Anvil has arrived. Light up the forge. That's brilliant. Welcome, World Anvilites. So yes, they're all here. and they will be made available to you now. No, that's not right. Go forward. I meant to click there. Anyway, there are also some other folders in here which I will be sharing with you anon. So some of these are just some free maps that I made on Dungeon Fog that you can then download. So here's a giant arena that I made, which if you need an arena, go get an arena. You know, that sort of thing. Anyway, so there'll be a bunch of maps in there. NPCs you're going to see next week. We are now doing some NPC stuff. I think that could be quite fun. Anyway, mainly it's about having all of those forms here. So you'll see here. Now, this is something that you won't be seeing because this is not very nice. And you have no idea what TBL underscore means. That's my shorthand for table. And then adventure phase, adventure template, and we'll rename these so that they make more sense. But you can download them, or you can actually access them. So anyway, that's what we're working on in terms of those. So those are, it doesn't matter whether you have the book or not. You can get those, you just download them, they're there. So knock yourself out. Like I said, that link that button will be active on the main page as soon as the Web Goblin has actually done that. So anyway, there we are. Okay, so you asked for number 2. Number 2 is a Watcher. You get a non-flaking wolf totem. It doesn't flake. That's brilliant. That's absolutely wonderful. A non-flaking wolf totem. A non-flaking wolf totem. Okay, right. And then the next question, because I took so long on that, and I was doing an exposition on the forms and things, which absolutely no one reacted to. So that's brilliant. Glad I spent the last 5 days making those forms, and Jerry can die happy knowing that he really contributed to the community. Anyway, right, so there we are. That was your question, Watcher 2417. Nick the Knife with his somewhat involved question. I'm going way back, right? Because I did skip it. First, I'm new to the channel. Well, welcome, Nick. It's wonderful to have you here. Glad to have you on the channel. And really enjoying the content. Thank you. Second, how does one go about having their game in... Oh, yes, you wrote the email about the superhero, supervillain setting. Right, okay. Side info, players chose villains. Well, that's, yeah, okay. Game system will be dread with minimal horror elements because I like theory behind the playstyle. Deck 3, please. Okay. Dread's the one with the Jenga blocks, I think. Unless I'm greatly mistaken. I think that's the one with the Jenga blocks. There we go. You see, if you go fishing for compliments, you'll eventually catch something. Thanks, Dan C. and Jimmy James. Thank you. Anyway, that's not the point. We didn't do it for the love. We did it for those that have asked for them. Anyway, right. Okay, so superhero, supervillain setting. Now, and deck 3, right. So I'm going to pre-draw your cards so that I don't forget Nick the Knife. And that's the last one that I'm going to skip to the bottom now because I'm going to get stuck. Anyway. Yeah, so Dread is Jenga. Yeah, absolutely. Right, good. All right, let's put that aside for a moment and let's focus more on the superhero, supervillain side of things. Now, a superhero or a supervillain game, you really need to fall back on the 4 types of adventures. You really, really, really need to do that. Now, there is a video series called The 4 Different Adventure Types, but in a nutshell, they are thwarting, delivering, collecting, and discovering. Okay, so those are the 4 different types of adventures, as far as I'm concerned, that one can base one's adventures on. With superhero, supervillain games, why I need more coffee, apparently. Apparently I need more coffee. With the games for superheroes and supervillains, the biggest challenge that you have is that, generally speaking, the superheroes or the supervillains will have a specific power that they will use ad infinitum, aka the Warlock from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Eldritch Blast is basically magic missile because imagine the wizard didn't have any other spells, so then it would just be magic missile. Anyway, so the biggest challenge you're going to face is that the players become rather bored with their one superpower that they can use. And yes, I know most mechanical systems will have an advanced tree that you unlock as you go through it and that sort of thing, but generally a superhero has certain powers, and those are the powers that they have. Spider-Man should never really have the ability to fire lasers out of his eyes, for example. On the other hand, because these characters were, in the past anyway, written to be solo operators, oftentimes there was creep within the character, and so the character kind of developed extra abilities and things, and you go, well, really? Anyway, so the idea is that by using those 4 different adventures, you can make sure that each of the adventures that happen one after the other are different in terms of how they play out and how they feel. Because generally speaking, the character's solutions are going to be, in my experience, the same as before. So at least if they're on different types of adventures, there is different parts of the character that are being used by virtue of the fact that it's not just a go kill the goons, get to the bad guy, kill the bad guy, win the day. That can be, it's very routine, and that can happen with superhero games quite quickly. So use those 4 adventures to cycle round, because the other problem that you have with superheroes, and Superman is a classic example, is that in theory, Superman has one weakness, kryptonite. So your villains always have to have kryptonite, otherwise there is no threat. When you look at Batman's superpower, which just happens to be his actual superpower, is he's always in the right place at the right time, versus, say, reality, where he has some protective armor, yes, he has some skill at not being seen and all that kind of wonderful stuff, but a sniper with a well-placed shot would be able to blow his jaw out and the back of his skull off before he took 3 steps forward. With a little planning, that can certainly happen. Anyway, let's not go down that path. Everybody has a superpower, and their superpower generally gets used over and over and over again because it's their superpower and they kind of want to use their superpower. That's kind of why they became it. So make sure that the way in which you overcome that superpower is with different techniques. So maybe the one adventure, it's a mutant who can absorb the powers of other mutants. Okay, cool. Then the next one, which is more of a discovery, is that there's a scientist who's found a dimension where superpowers don't work. And then the next one, so you have your usual plot structure, where you've got your campaign running and you've got your 14 or 15 actual adventures that will formulate that entire campaign. And those are the ones that I'm talking about in terms of the 4 different adventure types. You've obviously got your player backstories and all those kind of wonderful things. And never forget, a lot of super villain, superhero stories oftentimes revolve around the character's past, before they had the superpower, or their origin story, as we call it. Now, the players don't want to start at their origin story. That's fairly mundane and fairly boring. We want to start in the middle of the action, so when they're already superheroes, assumedly. So remember, you can always go backstory, origin story of one of the characters, main plot story, which is a different one. So it's about trying to keep it as dynamic as possible. And that's quite a long answer, but it is quite an interesting topic. I have run on this YouTube channel, as a matter of fact, it's called Mutants and Masterminds, where I was running a game and tried to keep it as vibrant as possible. They were fighting Nazis in East Germany. But yes, that's the long and short of it. And as a result of it, you get a gem-studded, just making sure they're from the same deck. Yes. A gem-studded river giant. A gem-studded river giant. You can figure out how that works. Is it a rhinestone-covered river giant? So it's the giant who's got some bling and just likes a bit of dazzle under the bridge. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on there. I'm not sure. Anyway. Okay, right. The next question I can see is Eddie Norman, and it's just disappeared off my screen, so I'm going to go and find that. Eddie Norman says, how do I encourage my players to roleplay more between themselves and not just to NPCs? It's a good question. Now, I think the most direct answer to that, the easiest solution, is to tell your players, hey guys, I would love it if you could roleplay more between your characters during sessions. I'll give you time to do it if you want to explore it. But bear in mind, this is the weirdest moment in role-playing if your players are not used to it. It's where you turn, I think you are the sexiest, most ruggedly built barbarian dwarf I've ever seen, and I just want to touch your beard. It gets weird when you're talking in character to another player's character, unless you know that everyone's a bunch of actors. Then it's a totally different story, and it's absolutely a different effect. So it's about reading your player group. Now, I've had some players who absolutely refuse to use the first person. I always talk about my character in the third person. That is a safety mechanism. That is where they are safe to play. That is comfortable. That is what they want to do. It is their choice, and we should not enforce our choices on anybody else. If the entire table, however, wants to do it and this one player doesn't, then maybe it's time for that player to find another group that they can join and be more comfortable with. So it's about finding out. And the only way to do that is actually to ask them, hey, do you want more role-playing time between your characters? Do you want to actually role-play between your characters? Because you do a great job with the NPCs. I'd love to see what happens in between your actual characters, but be aware that some people can find that very, very awkward. I was having a conversation the other day, actually, and people were saying, oh, do you like playing? And I don't particularly like playing, actually. I'm playing, and I felt very bad about that because I'm playing in a friend of mine's game. And he went, oh, well, there's a challenge in. So I went, well, it's a challenge, but it's not going to succeed because it's not real enough for me to actually enjoy it in character. I love LARPing when the LARP is wide, because then I can be somebody else, so I can completely subsume myself, but I'm in costume and I'm in a space where everybody's expecting that to happen. Around the table, I can't subsume, so then I'm the storyteller telling my character's story to the other players, and I don't like that disconnect. So I go way beyond what most tables are comfortable with. So bear that in mind. All right, now, those of you that are new to the channel, because we've had a whole lot of people joining in the last couple of minutes, which is absolutely fantastic. Welcome, glad to have you here. I've got 3 decks supplied to us courtesy of Lawsmith. That's Law, LORESMYTH.com, lawsmith.com. They've given me 3 decks here of random magical items and locations and things. When you ask a question, put a number at the end, 1, 2, or 3, and that's the deck that I will draw from. Okay, so randomly, I'm going to draw from a deck. I'm not going to tell you what number I'm drawing from. So for asking that question about role-playing between players, you get a scarab-shaped purity ring. A scarab-shaped purity ring. There you go, a scarab-shaped purity ring. Interesting. Okay. Xander the Green says, what are some ways to keep the flow during downtime when players have more control and don't know what to do? Deck 3. Okay, well, if players don't know what to do during deck... I've just noticed that. I know what that is, actually. That's the light shining off of the Roman armour that's sitting in the back of the room, shining through the green screen. I apologise for that. Where's the background gone too? Why is that stopped? Let me just double check something. Is my computer falling over? It's set to loop. Do I have a whole... I'm going to change the background quickly. Just stand with me for a moment. There we are. Let's do that one, an old-fashioned one. We haven't seen that one for a while. Anyway. Okay, right. So downtime and players. What should we do with players who don't handle their downtime very well? It is a question, and this is entirely up to you. If your group maybe isn't experienced, they don't necessarily know what to do. And this actually can kind of tie in with the previous question as well. If the players get to a campsite and they're like, all right, we set up camp. Okay, great. The evening starts to tick by. And it's crickets from the players. They don't answer whatsoever. Now is a golden opportunity for you as the GM to say, all right, well, Thorg, what's your character doing? Well, Brian, what's Thorg doing while sitting around the campfire? It's got that chill crisp in the air and that wonderful scent of the fire crackling and spitting as it casts that warming glow surrounds your character. What's the character doing? you can engage them to say, "Oh well, I'm sharpening my blades using my flint and tinder. I mean my whetstone." And yeah, all right, okay. What do you think Thor might say to the rest of the group? So you can prompt them to do it, but work methodically, always methodically, through your group to make sure that each and every one gets an opportunity to say what their character is doing. I frequently have players where you go, okay, what are you doing? And then one player gives me this list. Okay, well, first I set up the cooking hearth, then I cook a wonderful meal, then I go and hunt some deer, then I come back and I skin it, and I'm like, why? Slow down, one at a time. Let's go through those. Do you make rolls for those? Let's roll to see what your cooking is like. Maybe, if it's important, and if it's a really quiet moment, you might say, "Oh, give us a roll." "Oh, look, you rolled a natural 20. It's the most amazing soup you've ever had." Or you've rolled a 1, it's spoiled, the meat's gone bad, you're going to have to hunt for food tomorrow. But generally speaking, try and avoid rolls whilst you are encouraging this kind of role-playing session. But it is you who can prompt. If your players are not doing it naturally, prompt them. Prompt them, prompt them, prompt them. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think you said, did you give me a deck number? Who even asked that question? I can't remember anymore. Oh boy, you see what happens? That was Xander the Green. Yeah, Xander the Green, deck 3. Okay, great. You get a monster detecting flock of chickens. A monster detecting flock of chickens. Your chickens detect monsters. When they discover monsters, they cluck loudly. Ah, gotta love it. Gotta love it. Alrighty then. Next question. Joanna S says, how can GMs who don't do NPC voices create an equally engaging game experience? Absolutely valid question. Very, very good question, Joanna S. And the answer, quite simply, is description of the 5 senses. Now, the NPC sheets that I have made available online for all of you actually contains blocks where you write the 5 senses. Let me bring it up very, very, very quickly. And I will show you what I'm talking about so that it makes a little bit more sense. I'm just busy looking for the form. I don't know why I'm in music. I'm in a fairly good mood tonight. Don't know why. Okay, so that's there. We press that button, and through the miracle of modern day technology, when we actually scroll down, I've given the senses here, so you can fill in those senses. So when they come across an NPC, it's a case of saying, okay, well, what do they look like? That's obvious. But what is not necessarily obvious is how do they sound? So if you're not very good at putting on different sounds and voices, then perhaps it's about saying the character speaks with such sibilance that he almost lisps his way through his sentences, slithering about like some kind of scaly serpent. His words seem to drip with venom at every single utterance. There's some heavy assonance for you to take home and use. So it's very much about putting together this repertoire and working on it, and then working on this as well, because when I'm doing a voice, I can attempt to convey the emotion in doing the voice. But if you are not someone who does that, or if you're not comfortable doing that, it is also easy to put in here, how do they behave? What is their normal emotional state? But how do they behave when they're happy? So the sibilancing, essing individual, when they're happy, perhaps the gets less. But when they're sad, it gets longer. So as you're talking to him, as you say that you have returned the gold to him and he's whistling away like a steam train, he is so happy that his essing gets less. And for a brief moment he says, I am stupefied by this amazing state that you have put me in. There's barely an S to be found in the sentence. But then you tell him that his daughter died and the S's return with a vengeance. So again, filling in these blocks, using the descriptors at your disposal, your descriptions might become a little bit longer, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Remember, you don't want to spend more than a minute or so describing this NPC. The players are going to fall asleep, or they're going to assume that everything that you've said is a clue, and they're going to want to investigate. So do that. The trap I fall into, I know I'm guilty of this, and I kind of worked on it for a while, and I'm still working on it to this day, as a matter of fact, is I rely too much on doing different voices, and then I forget to describe the actual NPC. So I do know that's an area I have to work on. Okay, now you didn't indicate a deck, so I'm going to give you another random draw from this particular deck. You get a pitted silver cracked hourglass. I had to practice that in my head after all of that sissing. A pitted silver cracked hourglass. There we go. A pitted silver cracked hourglass. Use that in your next adventure. Next is, yes, I Lick the NPC is always a very good one to go with. That's a good opener. Someone was saying I'm in a good mood because I didn't garden. I enjoy gardening. I don't enjoy the effects thereafter. No, but my new hobby involves a pen, as a matter of fact. It's not writing. I wish it was writing. But it's a 3D pen, and it's painstakingly slow work, but it's quite satisfying. So I bought one the other day, and I immediately, because I'm a game master, I immediately made a skull, right? It's terrible. So now bear in mind that this is drawn. You literally draw it flat on a page, and you draw multiple layers, and you build up a cage, and then you sort of work a shape. So that's what I started with. And I quite enjoyed that. I found it quite relaxing. And I think it's important to have different hobbies. So now I'm working on this, which is a tree that is not yet finished. I'm still working on it. I'm still growing on it. So this is the next one. But as you can see, that's what the texture is going to look like there. I've got to do that over the whole cage though. So anyway, so I'm having fun with that as an extra sort of hobby to take one's mind off things. And it's amazing as you're doing these lines, what comes to mind anyway. Okay. And the tree is not for, I wish it was for miniature gaming. I mean, you could certainly do it that way. A 3D printer would be much better, but this is more about, I think it's like the zen of just doing line after line, and with the tree, it's because it's organic. I didn't want to do something that was structured because it's organic. It's like, well, I'll grow a branch off this, and then you start drawing, and it's sometimes confusing. And you don't work on the whole tree. You work on a branch at a time. Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. If any of you need a therapeutic and fairly cheap hobby to get into, actually. It was what, sort of £20 for the pen, and then the filament is not that expensive. Anyway, there we go. That's a side question. Right. Next question comes. What are we doing for time? All right, we're good. Next question comes from Game Master's Vault. Any other easy ways to preclude extended shopping trips by PCs? I've been making a list of the shop. Yeah. So. PC shopping is fun for the PCs. We must always bear that in mind. Well, it's fun for some PCs, not for all PCs necessarily. I have tried the trick of, all right, you're coming to town, so make the shopping list before you get there. Never happens. I have tried the trick of, all right, you get to town, you can buy anything in the rulebook that's listed there. That didn't work so well. In the current RPG system that I have been working on, the Try system, I listed rarity value of the items that they as they're stocked. So in a small village, you're unlikely to find a silver-plated sword, but in a capital, you're very likely to find a silver-plated sword, and then that's the price. So it is tricky. I look at it and I say, okay, where am I in the story? What is my pacing like? If it's just been a long journey montage where there is no combat, where there is no... The pacing has just been fairly slow, it's just been story, then your shopping needs to have some kind of combat. And again, that combat can be social. So it could be haggling, but I think it needs to be very, very dangerous kind of haggling. So perhaps as people go off to go shop, the one who isn't interested, someone sidles up to them and says, oh, you want to get involved in a game of dice? We'll double your money back. Guaranteed. Absolutely guaranteed. No losers here, except for the ones that lose, of course. But the odds are in your favour because, look, I have loaded dice and I'll split the profits with you 50-50. There's a gambling den just down there. In other words, work a micro adventure into the shopping experience. It does work quite well, as a matter of fact. So that you certainly can do. I think it works. I think it works quite well. Okay, now you didn't give a number at the end of your sentence, so I'm going to give you a random draw from this deck. You get a tacky felt hand drum. A tacky felt hand drum. So a low quality hand drum. So you may bang your drum as you so like, sir. You may bang your drum as you like, sir. Okay, now let me see. Ranwin Phoenix says, can I repost my question from the beginning? Yes, you can, please. Yes. Thank you, Carl Volmerance, for that. And Frederick for answering. Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can indeed. Okay, so there's lots of questions about the goblins. Goblins are really curious. Yes. That's what I needed. Yeah, so the goblins thing. Yes. I'm keeping quiet about that for a little bit longer. I'm going to keep quiet about it, but I promise you the goblins are worth something. Probably. I'll get there. Don't judge me. I'll come back to them. I really will. The goblins, they definitely mean something. Now, okay, before we go forward, I have a question for you folks. And I need your help. You're very smart people. And I need your input. I made the decision to run a one-on-one game. Now, I haven't run a one-on-one game for a very long time. And I enjoyed it when I ran it. But I wanted to run a one-on-one game weekly. So I opened it up to any of the patrons of my channel. Anybody could go and sign up to join this one-on-one game. But I can only choose one person. There can be only one. How do I choose which one to join? Because all the normal things are not applicable. Every single person who said, oh, I'd like to join, qualifies. So how do I choose? Do I randomly do something like you? I feel like that's I don't know. I need to think about it a little bit more because I really appreciate the fact that people want to join the game. I think that's absolutely awesome. And there was a wonderful suggestion by someone who really wants me to die, who went, well, why don't you just run 12 one-on-one games and run it like different faction houses and get them to fight and, have them... I'm like, I can barely keep track of like one storyline, let alone 12. So it was a very nice idea, but yeah. So yeah, based on role-playing skill, that's tricky without doing sort of interviews and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of there's questions, but I hear what you're saying. Random numbers are the way to do it. All right, I will do random numbers. I mean, we've got a random roller on the Discord channel. We might as well do that. Now, Krishka says, let the players suggest the setting and their character idea. Well, the setting has already been chosen. It is a campaign world that we haven't played in, although we made it last year. It's the campaign world of Utherios. So we'll be playing in an ancient Greco-Romanesque kind of way. And the first adventure... No, I'm not going to tell you how the first adventure starts, except I have warned all the players it's going to be quite brutal. Because I want to play quite a serious game. Usually I play quite a quiet, fun rolling kind of game. I want to play a serious game. So anyway... Let's see. Okay. But that's enough from me. We're answering your questions. We're answering your questions. So remember to ask your question at the end of the question. Put the number 1, 2, or 3 to get your magical item for asking that question. Sammy Crit Fiddle, you talk about... Ha! I got it right! Straight off the bat. There we go. Tryouts. I've done tryouts before. They usually work. But I want to start playing. I don't want to spend months trying to find the right player. Anyway, I mean, because it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome, everybody who wants to play. So there we are. Free-for-all deathmatch. Winner takes all. Design a first-level character and have them fight in a grand melee in the center of an arena. You know what? Thay Lindor. You know what? I am going to give you a gold-laced garnet goblet. Wow. A gold-laced garnet goblet. So you have a very, very valuable one there. I think that's what we're going to do. I think that's exactly what we are going to do. We're going to do a free-for-all death match, winner takes all. Bloody hell. Is that fair? How would I feel if I was a player and I was like, well, you get to play on my game. You get to play on my game if you survive long enough to play in my game. Yeah. I don't know. I'll throw it out to the players, the candidates, and see what they say. I mean, at the very least, they get to play one session where they get to have fun. But anyway, right. Yeah, Desman says Max says enjoy. So the real question will be who plays in that death match, not who survives, but who plays the best. Maybe. I don't know. It's definitely not fair. But it certainly could be interesting because the survivor, the one character who will be playing this game definitely has the choice. Of their career future prospect. And one of those choices is Gladiator, I must tell you. So it would be quite fitting. Michael Beale, firstly, thank you for that donation. Really do appreciate it. I really do. If you are a Patreon, and I really should know the names of all the patrons. I watch them scroll past every week. But if you are a Patreon, you can sign up. Absolutely. We opened it to the patrons because they're patrons of the channel. So Michael, if you want to join, if you want to throw your hat into the ring, it is not yet too late. It is an interesting one. Yeah, we'll see what happens. This is a vital question I believe we could all do great things with the answer to. Do you guys possess the indestructibly rare ability to bestow upon us lowly human scum the mantle of great GM? Says Lee Chamberlain. I cannot call you a great GM or not. Your players bestow that title upon you. Lee Chamberlain. And if you ask them, am I a great GM? They are flippantly going to respond, yeah, of course you are, absolutely. Not one of them is going to go, well, no, I think you're more like a mediocre kind of, an average GM. I think, you're like a so-so. Unless they're very good friends, in which case then you have to ask them why they think you should, what you can improve upon. I generally think that it is something that is bestowed upon you. I really do. And not to put too fine a point on it, in my long career of being a GM, I have been told by some people that I should never GM a game at all, ever again, because I was the absolute worst GM they've ever had. And I have been told by a lot of people that I am a great GM. So the title is earned by your player group, and that's the only group that actually counts in terms of whether you are a great GM or not. So there you are. And you said 3, I think. Okay, so firstly, hang on, Michael Beale. Michael Beale It's the cards. It's not me. You get a mud-covered wooden sun emblem. A mud-covered wooden sun emblem. So there you are. And yes, Game Master's Vault is the world's most okay GM. There you are. Most okay GM. He's an awesome GM, and he still hounds me for information on a game I ran years ago and expects me to remember these things. Anyway, Ranwin Phoenix says, add your Patreon link in the description. Yeah, that's a good point. I really should. I'm awful with that. I'll put it into chat now for those of you that want to join, but it's no guarantee, by the way, that you will get any seat. Patreon.com/ Great Game Master. All right, I think that's the Patreon link. Anyway, all right, and Ranwin Phoenix, thank you for that donation. I really do appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Okay, right, back to questions. Suden says, Guy, do you have a favorite resource for daily creative writing prompts, please? Sorry for asking on the wrong day yesterday. Suden, I didn't notice yesterday. I mean, yesterday's chaos. If you don't know what happens on Saturdays, I sit creating a world with you guys. We co-creating this crazy world, and I bring in people. It started originally with Kaora, that wonderful, wonderful map maker. He started to draw the map with us and create the world with us. Then Demetrius from Old Anvil came in, and yesterday he was showing us all these wonderful tricks and things on how to run adventures and things within the actual thing itself. So, Suden, in terms of daily creative writing prompts, the real prompt, I would say, should always be from yourself, and it should always be something that you hate doing. And I know this sounds very odd, but when I was practicing to write dialogue for television, I hate writing dialogue for television. I, as a human being, do not speak in the same way in which other humans speak. It's a genetic deformity or something. I don't know. I use weird words and I like to twist sentences, and it's how I operate. And oftentimes people look at me and they go, I know you've just spoken, but I have no idea what you've just said. And I go, well, of course there was a thing and a thing and anyway. So when I was learning to write dialogue, I had to practice writing dialogue. So my daily routine would be write out 3 pages of dialogue, realize that all of that dialogue was written in your own voice, and then delete it and try and write it in sentences that other people would use. And then I would test it by I would phone up someone and say, hey, how would you tell me that the house is on fire? And then I'd check what they've said versus what I'd sort of written. And I mean, it definitely worked, because I got to the point where I was writing screenplays and that sort of thing with dialogue that people were happy with. So it's always about sort of testing yourself against stuff that you don't like. Yeah, and as Game Master's Vault says, he has an Etch-a-Sketch with a diagram to prove that chocolate milk... I have chocolate milk downstairs. Oh, I found some chocolate milk downstairs. Anyway, all right. Okay, right. Show's over. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. No, all right. Before I go anywhere, so pseudonym for that, you didn't give me a number. Did you give me a number? I don't know if you gave me a number. Anyway, I'm going to go. You get a polished azurite golden tiara. Wow. A polished azurite golden tiara. Lots of money value there for you to go shopping in Game Master's Vault with. The Tenshi Tobias says, what to do in a game where one player is cheating in every way possible, but the GM hardly do anything in terms of exercising any control over it. So you're a fellow player, and someone else is cheating. Look, and the GM is not doing anything about it. The advice I gave a couple of weeks ago is, if you detect as the GM that someone's cheating in your game, ask yourself, is the cheat of such disruptive nature that it needs to be addressed? Is the cheat valuable to you in terms of using it as a meta tool to help move the story along? Someone who's cheating in role-playing is basically saying my imaginary numbers are better than your imaginary numbers. So to get unhappy or to get angry about it, I have done so. I have raged. I have ranted. I have decried the state of human condition where someone would cheat in an imaginary game. It's literally like 5-year-olds on a playground pretending to be their favorite superheroes and saying, nah, you can't, so you can't. Double dibsies, no, you can't. Yes, I can't. I mean, it's literally, that's kind of what it's like. So this person that's cheating doesn't mean they always succeed. Doesn't mean that they always get through with whatever it is they're doing. That can be very irritating to you as a fellow player who are bound by using the die value, which could cause a success or a failure. So you could raise it with the GM and just talk to them about it and say, well, are you aware of this fact? You could raise it with them saying, hey, I noticed that you get some really good rolls all the time. Most likely they'll go, oh yeah, I'm just naturally lucky. Yeah. Scumbag. Sorry, did that come out loud? I'm trying to say, be nice to these people. You could find another player to replace the said player because if once they start cheating, either you're going to use the power against them or you're going to let them go. Or whenever the roll's needed, say, oh, no, I want my character steps back and says, no, you first. You have the power of your imaginary numbers being invincible. So you go first. You don't say that part out loud. That's what sits behind your eyeballs. And that's what you say with your eyeballs as you watch their character walk through all the traps and things so they naturally pass. So either you use it as a power for good or you raise it as an issue. That's the bottom line. It's very, very sad and disheartening when it happens, but it does happen. And you need to decide, is it worth changing the game over or is it worth changing your approach to it? And if you'd like the numbers to be the actual numbers, then if the GM doesn't have a problem with the cheating and if the player doesn't have a problem with the cheating, then it's time to move on. That's what it is. Okay. I don't know if you gave me a number or not, but I'm going to draw from this deck anyway, and you get a rotund engraved cabbage patch. I have no idea how those work together, but you basically get fat cabbages. That's what you've got. You've just got a whole bunch of fat cabbages. And as much as I resemble Adamark, it is what it is. So that's what you get. Fat cabbages. Ranwin Phoenix says, what do you do about a player who makes an incredibly detailed and closed off backstory? They create characters where they just want to tell their story and talk to their friends. Oh, you've got an author in your group. You have an author in your group. I made a video series called What Type of Player Are You? I think it might actually be on this YouTube channel or it might be on the Great GM channel itself. And authors are those exact people. I've created this amazing backstory. It's far more interesting than the game I'm currently playing in. And the GM can't touch it. The GM cannot touch it because it's sacrosanct. I wrote it and it's brilliant. Yeah. Again, either you pay them attention and you buy into it and then explore it because, hey, it might be interesting. But oftentimes, unfortunately, those people who've written those great backstories are not looking for collaborative intrusions into their past. They're looking for the adulation of fans who've now been forced to read this giant backstory, but who cannot alter or change it. Again, look at it. Is it very disruptive to the group? Is it something that you can live with? Is it something that you could use to your advantage? If it isn't, it's time to find a different group. And, oh my God, we're running out of time. Okay, we're going to go over time here because I've still got stuff to do and you've distracted me with all of these cunning questions. So there we are. You get, because I didn't see a number, you get a mysterious broken orc tooth. A mysterious broken orc tooth. Interesting. It's mysterious. It's an orc tooth. Okay, great. Let us... Oh, yes. Right. Okay, good. Fine. Oh, right. Good. Fine. I'm going to show you this very brief video. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't stress. I have written... There must have been about 30... I would say 30 email backwards and forwards between myself and this particular Kickstarter. And, no, maybe not 30, like 10. at least 10, like at least 7. There were lots of emails. I mean, I wrote like at least 3 times, and one of them wasn't an automated response. No. I wrote to this, well, they wrote to me and they said, look, we've got this product. We want you to show it on your channel. And I said, well, we don't show anything that we don't use or wouldn't use normally in our game or in some shape or form. So we need a copy of the product first before we'll even review it. And they said, well, it's Kickstarter. It doesn't exist yet. So I said, okay, well, then you're going to have to sell me on it, aren't you? You're going to have to get me to buy into it. So, for example, Portrait Workshop, they sold me on the idea of Portrait Workshop and everything that needs to go into that. And I went, well, great, I will endorse your product. Anyway, this one took a lot of convincing because I wasn't sure exactly where it was going. There has been a couple versions of this out there. And then the other day I was sort of looking on my phone. I was doing something. Now, I don't commute anymore. I used to in Japan. And then I needed a game to play on my phone. And I didn't really have one. This could be an interesting way to do it. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, insofar as that we have a future as a human species, unfortunately for them, it would have been really good if they'd had this out now because of what it does. So have a look at the video. Let me see what you think. And this is, show them some love. Don't run away. We'll go back to questions. We'll run for an extra half hour. How's about that? You watch this, let the sponsors be happy, and possibly it could be something that you might like. I mean, I'm going to give it a try. I really am. I honestly, I'm going to give it a try. So here we go.
They say that the city of Mythbrook used to be stunning. But one day, the darkest of clouds suddenly appeared. The heavy rain has been falling ever since. I doubt that this hell is the work of nature. No, it ought to be magic. Heroes, your time has come. Hold close to each other and don't let fear paralyze you. The pathway to Wizard's Tower is dark and full of wily snares. The roaring beast clawed your hand and threw you away.
I draw my sword and try to stab the beast in its heart.
Then you'll walk the ancient frog path.
I can share a healing potion.
Sail through the raging streams of Valorans.
Can I see all the way to the bottom of the river?
And finally, reach the top of the Karkat Mountain to face the wizard himself. The only source of his magical powers comes from the iridescent crystal. Destroy it and the wizard will be defeated for good. And the citizens of Mythbrook will always worship and remember you as their undaunted saviors. What will be your story?
Okay, so I mean, that was their whole little video, their intro video. Now, this is their Kickstarter. They've already been double funded. They've got exactly what they wanted, plus some extra. And the bottom line is that they want. I've just muted the background of it. It's an app. Does this play that whole video again? Oh no. This is the creator Yun. Now, poor old Yun has been fielding my questions backwards and forwards. It is, as Des Manor points out, it really is it's a phone app, and it is, from what I can gather, an interactive play-by-post, effectively. That's kind of how it works, and you do your turn and things, but there's obviously mechanics that are sitting in the background and allowing you to do various bits and bobs. What I do like, you see, you can make your own maps though. So I very much said, okay, look, I'm not interested in a product where you have to, buy, $10 gets you Adventure 1, which takes 7 seconds, and then it's done. $5 gets you this. I was not interested in that. I said, I want to be able to create my own adventures that work just like their whole story works. Now, I think these guys are, I'm going to get shouted at. They're definitely from the eastern part of Europe. I'm not entirely convinced. Hang on a moment. Oh, they're from Prague, from the Czech Republic. There we go. Yay! All right. So I mean, you can watch this whole thing. This is their Kickstarter. You can make your own adventures. It's not you don't have to pay to be able to make your own adventures and stuff. Obviously, it's microtransactions that they're looking at in terms of, that's an awful pause. It's microtransactions that they're going to be looking at. You can have a look at it here. You get equipment, you level up, you can make your own maps. Particularly what I liked was, though, that the GM is still responsible for making the maps, setting the encounters, putting the creatures together, and running the whole thing. So what it does, from what I understand, it's really, 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 really cool. So we'll see. We'll see. And obviously they've got some kind of cool stuff. In terms of microtransactions, it's skins, it's extra bits and bobs, it's multiple monster faces and heads. They're looking at putting a dungeon generator in and all that kind of wonderful, wonderful stuff that one expects. But yes, it's basically really souped up. Dekrishka says, does it work kind of like passing paper in school? Yes, it does. Now, again, I haven't used it. I have asked lots and lots of questions. So, and the Kickstarter is very, very good in terms of resolving this. Now, combat, as you can see here, it's turn-based. So if you say my move is to attack the orc, it does the process, it attacks the orc, and then we wait for, let's say, another person to do their turn, but they're not online today, or they're not online now. They get the message on their phone. They can then do their turn. So play by email, way back when my very first online role-playing experience was play by email, play by post, play by Discord, all the kind of bits and pieces that one does. So Warp Enigma says, so the GM sits down to plan the adventure, then gets a group to play the adventure the GM has made. Yes, that's right. And I believe the GM is there to trigger it. So lots of questions. If you have many more questions about this, if you're really serious about jumping in and supporting this project, you can give them to me and I'll pass them on to Jan. Like I said, he's in contact with me. But it really is a very comprehensive kickstarting page. I have as yet to see a longer one. As a matter of fact, it's as you can see my little bar here, it's really small. So they really do go into it. So this is a Kickstarter worth watching. Certainly just in terms of the tenacity of Jan to answer all of my questions and make sure that it fulfilled my criterion. So there we are. Okay, we have done our due, but I think, as always, our due is possibly something that we might very well get into. So there we go. I wish them the very best of luck. Now, I saw someone asking a very contentious question earlier on, which automatically got my blood boiling, and that was Frederick Schmidt asked in one sentence, as if I could ever answer anything in one sentence. My goodness, are you mad? Anyway, Frederick asks, or Frederick, I should say, asks, why do you dislike Enterprise? I'm assuming you're talking about Star Trek Enterprise, that 4-season disaster. Star Trek Enterprise would have been 1,000 times better if they didn't have the crew that they had. That's really the bottom line. The other problem is that they were in the wrong time period. They were in a time period that absolutely no one cared about. No one cared about that time period that they were in. What we were looking for was something exciting, something dramatic, something bold, something Trekian, and what we got was something that was... It was a disaster. It was a complete disaster from head to foot. And when I say the cast, the actors were absolutely brilliant actors. They were wonderful actors. They portrayed their characters that were given. The characters they were given were absolutely dull. The only character that had any kind of interest was Dr. Phlox. And even then, it was very kind of like... Yeah. Well, okay, he's got like 50,000 wives, but that was one episode that we explored that in. One episode. Okay. Compare that to the Orville, where Bortus has I don't know what kind of relationship, and they do gender reassignment on their baby which hatches. that is where Star Trek should have gone to in Enterprise. It should have tried to be bold and daring. We'd just come out of Deep Space Nine, where we'd had this mega civil war and betrayal and some unknown frickin' deity nonsense. But there was this epicness. And then we go to Enterprise, where it's trying to be before the original series, but the set... Do you see what's happened? Do you see what has happened? We've wasted so much time and so much anger on a show that could have been amazing. And do you know, you can see I am quite passionate about this particular subject. I knew that the series was going to be a complete and utter disaster when the opening sequence started. A song? A song? What do we want a song for? What is this song nonsense? Who's singing a song? This is not Firefly, and the song doesn't compare to what Firefly was. How is this? No! And then we realized, oh, look, that set the tone for the whole series. I mean, name one character who actually had a backstory that we remotely cared about. Mayflower, his parents were spacers. Okay, great. So he grew up in space. And what? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He goes back to his parents' spaceship and he has a little bit of a fight with his parents or with his brother. Ooh. Miles Edward O'Brien, an extra in the Enterprise D series, was a war survivor from a major conflict with the Cardassians, had an arachnophobic fear. He was an extra in the background, and he has more personality than any of the bridge crew of the Enterprise in that... no! T'Pol had this, I'm slightly angsty. Did they really need to give us the, oh, look, the sexy female gets to wear span? Now, I understand that is done very specifically to make sure that there are lots of people who watch that show. But we did that with 7 of 9. And quite frankly, if I was given the choice between T'Pol or 7 of 9 would win hands down. It was like, look, here's Enterprise. Second prize. I know that's particularly bitchy, but this is how much I am so against this series in terms of its failure to actually launch. It was so boring from the beginning. It was like, oh, really? Really? This is the... Anyway, we're not going to go there. They had some great episodes, which proves that the actors could actually pull off stuff. I mean, there was some really, really cool stuff. But it just didn't do anything new. There was nothing new. Nothing whatsoever about that show was new. Nothing. Anyway, yes, you now have found my touch point. Well done. For that, you get a woven yin-yang desk bell. There we go. A desk bell with a woven yin-yang on it. Okay, all right. And Svein Pruta, don't even get me started on Discovery, because that will be the rest of the stream as vitriol flows through me. Anyway, it's fine. We're all happy here. Let's just recenter, recalm, and I'm out of coffee! I'm fine. Back to questions, if you please. Site 51 Productions, thank goodness, asks a reasonable question, I hope. My party killed the big bad very early on. Oh, God. I already introduced a new one, but some of my party already thinks they've won. This has split the party a bit. Any advice? Okay. So, it sounds to me, Site 51, that what happened was they killed your big bad. They think they've won because it felt like they had got to the end of the adventure. And it feels like you haven't let the adventure actually end. So by bringing in the second villain, it's like, haha, you thought he was the actual villain, but he actually wasn't. There's another villain. Look over here. The party haven't done that connection. They killed a villain. They're done. Thank you for playing. The next one will need its own link in. So what I would do in this particular situation, if they're not taking the bait on the second one being a threat, have the second one attack the party for some reason. Figure out why would they attack the party. Do they know about the party? Do they need something from the party? It could just be, you killed my master, I've come to hunt you down and find you. So there is always a bigger bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the party knows that there's a bigger bad or cares. They've done their job. We killed him. We're moving on. It's over. Let's get forward. Let's get moving forward. So that is something definitely to bear in mind, is that they might not know, or they might not have motivation to go on the second run. Give them motivation to go on that second run, get them involved, get them moving forward. And I think that will help you. I really, really do think that that will help you. So have a look at that. Have a look at that as a solution to unifying your party. And it could also be that that second big bad, they're just not interested. They want a different adventure altogether. So then give them a completely different adventure. This is also something that I think a lot of times we get stuck on, is don't get fixated that just because you've introduced another next villain, that you have to keep them. There are options. I introduced this villain. He threatens you. I shall never be destroyed. A horse cart rides over him, breaks his bones, and leaves him dead. Everyone laughs, and then you start a new adventure, a new campaign within the same world. I mean, a lot of times people think of campaign as, okay, the campaign is done, we now throw away that world, we throw away. No. The campaign is done in terms of that adventure arc, or that series of adventures, those stories are done. Now you can start another campaign, same players, same characters, just a new story, and you introduce that story in the same ways that you would under normal circumstances, dramatically, and with exuberance. That gets you a frail-looking wooden goblet. A frail-looking wooden goblet. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Dragon says, when RPing an undead, how would you express their suffering, if any? How would you depict them as something more than a target to kill? Deck 3, please. Okay, deck 3 is here. Okay, so undead, and you want them to not just be killed outright. The very first thing I would do is have the undead shout at the party, wait, don't kill, please kill me. Nearly broke my tree. Please kill me. Quickly. I'm suffering. Kill me. If they kill them, that's fine. But then they come back because it's a plot hook, right? I'm still not dead. Why am I not dead? This is so unfair. Work that into your story somehow. And the curse is extended or something along those lines. But have the undead ask to be killed. If you have the undead mourning over the loss of their children, the player's going to go, oh, so you're going to go and eat other children. Not happening. Right? We don't want that to happen. We don't want them to be moaning and mournful. One option that did happen, I did this in a game. Actually, there was a game that I was running with Game Master's Vault. And it actually got him to shed a tear down his cheek, which is quite the cheek. So it was a big tear. But they came across an undead. And he mistook one of the characters. As being his bride, and they worked out a whole bunch of story around that. But he said, "You have come back to me. I am so gratified that you've come." So he showed genuine compassion. So I do think it could be. I think it could be an option for you. So. Yeah, but asking the players to kill the character is definitely a way of getting them to not kill him. Okay, Jimmy James has said they've got to go. Well, Jimmy James has got to go and be an adult. I hate that. I hate it. So thank you, Jimmy James. And Cerberus9 says, I close a Twitch stream to go to bed, and then I see this one instead of going to bed. Well, this one is only going to go on for another 14 minutes, and then we are Kanlio. We are done. So, Game Master's Vault reminds me, that wasn't me. That was Tyler that ended up in the dress of the dead wife. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And the straw wig, I think that's what he... Right. So there you are. Was that a question? I don't know. Whoever asked that question, you get a cold repelling deck of playing cards. Repels the cold. So it warms you on a cold night. You play solitaire and you get warmed up. That's very nice. AK Writer says, recently I got the chance to set up and master a Dungeons & Dragons session for my family. That's awesome. All of them completely new to RPGs. What's your opinion, the best setting plot to introduce new innocent players to the game? Deck 2, please. And I did not want you to die horribly in your suggestion that I run multiple sessions. Now, I appreciated that suggestion. I really did. And it was very tempting, let me tell you. Okay, so Deck 2 for you. Right, that's this one here. Now, in terms of running a game for new role players and for people who've never role played before, it's about showing them what they can and cannot do. And by cannot do, it's pretty much they cannot violate the laws that we expect to be in place within communities and cities. So something that I usually start on is I usually start, very new players anyway, on a journey. And the journey begins with them getting to a fork in the road. Do they go left or do they go right? And that starts to prompt questions from them. Well, where are we going? Where are you going? Well, let's see. You're a this, you're a that. How are you going to make coin to pay for your meal tonight? How are you going to earn a living? You start to get them into the world by getting them to ask you questions. So they choose left fork or right fork. It makes no difference. They're traveling along and they get to the bridge, but the bridge has been destroyed. It spans a giant chasm or a river of some kind, and then they have to cross said bridge or go back the other way and find a swamp at the far end. So it's always about just leading them slowly. This is if you want to go with fantasy. If it's science fiction, it's a slightly different story. But it is quite literally the tutorial section of a computer game that you join. The players realize, or hopefully will realize, that they can step off of the path at any point. And when they do, treat them fairly. Let them encounter someone who's wise and fun and friendly and will give them some sage advice and send them on a very small adventure if you want treasure, why don't you go and loot the old tomb? That's just around there. Now, it might sound mundane to you. It might sound mundane, and it is. Remember, if people have not role-played before, don't hit them with Game of Thrones straight off the bat. Let them think and let them understand, oh, I can do anything. Right. So then I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. So that's how I would do it. That is exactly how I would do it. And that gets you a gleaming opaline tiny casket. So it's a tiny casket with an opal in it. There we go. Tiny casket with an opal in it. Okay, so let's see now. Where's the next question? Dancy says, how do you know what stats, legendary action, etc., to give your villain nemesis without making them too hard or too easy? Any tips? It's a good question. Legendary actions and all those kind of wonderful things are 5th edition constructs, which are really cool. I admit it. They are really cool. And in terms of that, in terms of the balance, there's a video coming out as soon as I've finished editing it. There's a video coming out where we talk about how to make sure that your encounters have meaning. I know it sounds like a flippant answer, but the legendary actions and things that your villain should be able to participate or should be able to take should either be legendary actions that the party can find out about beforehand, tricks that they've used before, or should be developed as a result of the party. So, unless the party stumbles across a dragon that has been absolutely oblivious to their actions, then I would use the stock standard traits and things from the book. But, and this is my biggest hatred of the Curse of Strahd module. It's a wonderful module, by the way. It's really, really, really very evocative and well written. But Curse of Strahd doesn't adapt. He's very much aware of the player characters. He would develop things specifically for those player characters because he can observe them and get away with it. So if you have a nemesis who knows about the players And the players give that nemesis time. The nemesis should have abilities and things that they have built in. Now, they might be in the form of traps and things, but that is part of the nemesis's build, is that they've got all these things. I know let me rephrase. So the way that the nemesis is structured, don't think of it as, okay, well, they've got these 3 legendary actions and that's it, because that's what they're supposed to have. And you can give them some cool superpowers. That's absolutely fine. But think of how they would prepare for the party to arrive and enable them to do that. So if the nemesis has got lots of money, why can't they hire a mage to build an anti-magic room for when the players walk in with their mage? Design it that way, and then design a way in which the players can discover that information as well, because there's nothing better than the players saying, why is that mage here? And the mage goes, I'm spent, he has used me for everything, absolutely everything. I have nothing left, but I'm retiring and buying a boat and going to go and find some mermaids. As he goes off and goes, you know, because he's got so much money now from him. So yeah, I would look at it from that perspective. In terms of making it too strong or not strong enough, if the players have done 0 investigation, don't worry about the strength. Do it as you would like. Give them the abilities and powers that you think are fair for them to have developed and have used. But most important of all, and I think this is something that frequently happens when you've got those kinds of things, legendary powers, lair powers, etc., 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 make sure that you have embedded them in the actual story beforehand, because there's nothing worse than arriving and going, oh, wow, you have the ability to do that? Why didn't you do that 6 hours ago? So bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. You get a blackened bandit contract. Ooh, that's an adventure. A contract for somebody that's been blackened, so redacted. The names have been put out with black ink. Anyway, I don't see any other questions on my screen. Oh wait, hang on a moment. Ghoul Cleric of Bob says, I do have a more generalized question. How does one run a castle, fort, or siege? Okay, so I have done a series of videos on sieges, because there's a lot of different aspects that you can look at. And I won't go into them too much in detail here, but if you head on over to the channel, youtube.com/how-to-be-a-great-game-master, one gigantically long sentence, then you will be able to type in siege, and there are several videos that I've done on sieges, because sieges should never be done as a single adventure. A siege should be done as multiple adventures where the player characters are involved in, depending on what side of the siege they're on, in a multitude of different adventures and things. So bear that in mind. Right. AK Writer says, is it me or does the connection just crash? No? Is everyone else okay? Hello, everybody? Stream seems fine. Okay, good. All right, so it's just them. Right. Again, Watcher2417 says, how are you motivated to create a campaign? Since I've been trying to continue working on mine for 2 weeks, I'm stuck with your chapter, Awesome Enemies. Well, it's a good question. I currently have I have 2 campaigns to work out. One of them I have to work out by Friday. One of them I have to work out by whenever we're done with the Highlander episode of the solo game. And I haven't done them simply because I've been too busy doing everything else. So I haven't had time for them. But I have the great fortune of living next to a very large park, a very nice park here in London. And I try every day to go to the park and do my daily hour of exercise as per government regulation, whilst maintaining a 2-meter distance from my fellow park users, who apparently do not understand how far 2 meters is. I mean, if these people were throwing fireballs, everyone would be dead. Anyway, so yes, I walk around I puff my arms out and sort of try and dissuade people from coming close to me. I do that in general anyway. So going on these walks, I turn my cell phone on silent, I put it into my pocket and I forget about it. And I just start mulling stuff over. I mull stuff over in my head. And I go, okay, let's think of some scenes. Let's think of something. Now, there is a video. I get lost. If you watched yesterday's stream, you'll know this video is coming out next week. But there's a video on how to start adventures, and that's you start with the final scene. So think of the Star Wars trilogies, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. The final scene is Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader on the Death Star whilst the Emperor watches, right? So you start with the final scene. So with an adventure, with a campaign, it's like, I want to see that scene play out, and then you work backwards. So the other day I was in the park and I've started writing the new book, Aerial Campaigns, and I'm like, what do I need to include in aerial campaigns that I didn't include in nautical campaigns? And what about this and what about that? And you watch the birds, or, I mean, get yourself out of your usual environment. That's the bottom line, and especially tricky these days. So even if it's in the shopping centre, go into the shopping centre and do your shopping. But however you get home, put out the rest of the world and just think of cool stuff. So you're worried about the awesome nemesis. Well, it doesn't have to be an awesome nemesis to begin with. Darth Vader didn't start out cool. He had to get there. And if you watch the original films, you'll see that he started out terribly. And yeah. Anyway, so that's what I would do there. You get a spiky, macabre woodland altar. Ooh, that sounds horrid. A spiky, macabre woodland altar. So, interesting. Right, that brings us to the end of the show. We've gone half an hour over because someone asked me a very, very, very personal question. So if I didn't get to it, I'm afraid. Ask again next Sunday when we will come back. Is Kaora streaming? All right, we can raid Kaora. I do not have a problem raiding him because we might have him on next week's show. I didn't say that out loud. I'm just logging into Twitchy. Shut up! I'm busy logging into Twitch. I didn't say that. Did I? That probably went out loud. Okay, anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out on a Sunday. I absolutely enjoyed myself. I hope you did as well, and learnt a little bit and got to get some insights. And so until next time, I'm going to start the is he streaming? Kaora? I can never remember how to spell it. Kaora. There we go. Yeah, let's stream. Let's start the raid and we'll do that. Anyway, Laura Bones did not learn what happened to the goblins. I will tell you next week. I promise. I cross my heart and hope to die, or something like that. Anyway. So until next time, thanks all for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.